A user on X recently revealed that U.S. security agencies discovered that China put war-grade software in solar panel inverters exported to the U.S. This software can remotely shut down the American power grid. This person said that last month, a Chinese solar power system in Spain malfunctioned, causing a large blackout with serious human and economic losses. Some organizations suspect China remotely activated the power attack software in the solar system to test its ability to disrupt power grids. According to Reuters, two insiders said that U.S. energy officials are reassessing the risks of Chinese-made devices after finding unknown communication equipment inside some renewable energy infrastructure. Experts say these devices can bypass firewalls, be controlled remotely, disrupt grid stability, and even cause large-scale blackouts. Power inverters are key devices that connect solar panels and wind turbines to the power grid. They're also found in batteries, heat pumps, and electric vehicle chargers. China is a major producer of inverters, and their products are used worldwide. These inverters support remote updates and repairs. Power companies usually set up firewalls to block direct communication between these devices and China. But insiders say that when U.S. experts dismantled Chinese inverters connected to the grid, they found hidden communication devices not listed in the product manuals. One insider revealed that in the past 9 months, unreported communication devices were also found in batteries supplied by several Chinese vendors, including in cellular radio systems. These hidden components create extra communication channels not documented in product papers. They may allow remote control that bypasses firewalls, potentially causing disastrous consequences. Experts warn that using these hidden communication devices to bypass firewalls, remotely shutting down inverters or changing settings could disrupt grid stability, damage energy infrastructure, and cause widespread blackouts. This is essentially something that can paralyze the power grid. Mike Rogers, former head of the U.S. National Security Agency, said, "We know that China believes there's value in putting at least some elements of our core infrastructure at risk of destruction or interference. I think, in part, China hopes that the widespread use of inverters limits the choice of the West to address these security concerns." U.S. experts' warnings about solar equipment later led security experts to call on the Australian government for urgent safety reviews of solar panels imported from China. As Australia pushes for emissions reduction, it heavily depends on renewable energy infrastructure made by Chinese manufacturers. Currently, 4 million Australian households have rooftop solar installations. More than 90% of the solar panels and most inverters come from China or Chinese companies. According to the Daily Telegraph, former Australian senior defense and intelligence official Michael Shoebridge said this is a major national security issue. He said it needs a forensic-level technical investigation, but he worries that the Labour government and its security agencies might choose to ignore it because the problem is too big and hard to face. The risks are obvious. The Chinese Communist Party can order its companies to embed extra communication or software systems in solar panels and battery systems. No matter who owns or operates these devices overseas, they can be remotely controlled. Australia's Energy Minister, Chris Bowen, admitted that Australia needs more locally made renewable energy products. His spokesperson said the government takes cybersecurity very seriously and has put in place a series of rules and standards to protect all Australians who use connected products. National Party Senator Matt Canavan said the Australian government has already banned Huawei and ZTE from building 5G networks, so why not go further and also solar panels and batteries that might contain spying software? A senior analyst said the top 10 global manufacturers of photovoltaic inverters are all Chinese companies, with Huawei ranked first. In a way, countries using Chinese photovoltaic equipment are essentially using Huawei equipment, which carries very high risks. On May 2nd, a Chinese media outlet called China Energy Network published an article titled "European Blackout: A Chinese Electrician Unexpectedly Goes Viral." This article accidentally revealed some little-known secrets. The article said on April 28th, Spain and Portugal suffered a massive blackout. Some parts of France were briefly affected too. The blackout was extremely rare in scale. Key areas like transportation, communication, and healthcare were paralyzed. Over 50 million people's lives were affected. Spain's Interior Ministry even declared a national state of emergency. In just 5 seconds, Spain lost 60% of its power supply nationwide. Some areas in Spain and Portugal were without power for 20 hours. The blackout caused flights to be cancelled, train systems to stop, mobile communications to fail, and ATMs to shut down. This blackout is believed to be the largest in Europe's history. country. It was more serious than the 2003 blackout that affected parts of Italy and Switzerland, where 56 million people lost power for 12 hours, or the 2006 blackout when Germany's overloaded grid caused outages across parts of Europe and even as far as Morocco. The article quoted Zhang Ziming, head of automation maintenance at the Ningbo Yingzhou District Power Supply Company. Zhang said such a large blackout like Europe's would not happen in China. He believes the blackout in Europe was caused by two main reasons. First, Spain and Portugal's power grids are islanded. This means their grids are not well connected to the rest of Europe. When faults happen, they can't get emergency power from outside, which lets the problem spread and cause large-scale blackouts. In addition, countries like Spain lack effective technology to regulate new energy sources. Spain is a leading EU country in renewable energy development. Public data shows that solar power provides 53% of its electricity, and wind power supplies 11%. Zhang Ziming said, "With such a high share of wind and solar energy, the grid is not very resilient to extreme weather. Without large-scale energy storage, when extreme weather hits, the grid will have no backup power to handle demand." He also told reporters that China's power grid is fully interconnected nationwide, unlike Spain's isolated grid. This allows China to manage power dispatch as one whole system. This means that if one area faces instability, the entire country can provide support. Analysts say that while Zhang was boasting about China's advanced grid concept, he unintentionally revealed two important points. First, China's grid is centrally controlled. Behind the so-called nationwide support is the ability to control, disconnect, or attack the whole grid as needed. Second, although Spain is considered a leader in renewable energy, Zhang sees Spain's grid more fragile. Without large-scale energy storage, renewable energy struggles to handle extreme weather. What Zhang didn't say outright is that Spain's heavy reliance on solar equipment makes its grid even more vulnerable to network attacks through inverters. The cause of Spain's blackout is still under investigation. However, Spain's high share of renewable power and use of Chinese photovoltaic equipment means that if the CCP tests cyber attacks there, the lack of traditional power reserves will make such attacks easier to succeed. Coincidentally, on May 10th, China's Xinhua news agency reported that Pakistan's military news bureau announced a military operation against India. It has successfully paralyzed 70% of India's power system via cyber attacks. This statement caused a stir on international social media. Many analysts questioned whether Pakistan really has cyber attack capabilities on that scale. Independent writer Wu Zhuolai reposted the news and said, "This is obvious. It's actually the CCP directly participating in the war." His comment pointed to a real orchestrator behind the large-scale blackout. His views received many likes and shares, becoming a hot topic. A user named Brian on X commented, "What does it mean to paralyze 70% of a country's power? Imagine if China lost 70% of its power. This implies that such cyber attacks have strategic-level destructive power far beyond typical hacking." Some people point out that attacks of this scale are only possible by a few countries. The CCP's cyber units, like the Red Hacker Alliance and Cyber Army Base, have long been accused of global infiltration. Many observers believe this event could be the first regional military conflict in the 21st century triggered by cyber warfare. Especially with tensions rising along the India-China border and closer military cooperation between China and Pakistan, Pakistan's claim of striking India's power grid has drawn intense attention. Senior analysts say that recent cyber attacks and major security issues affecting national energy facilities all involve one key player, Huawei. As the world's largest supplier of photovoltaic inverters, it's no coincidence that Huawei's products are involved. China's solar panel equipment and products from companies like Huawei appear to promote green energy and technological development, but beneath this surface lies a deeper strategic purpose. These devices usually have dense network connectivity, can collect detailed user data, and potentially have remote control and interference capabilities targeting other countries' infrastructure. Whether it's solar inverters or 5G base stations, the common point is that these technologies enable information control through technical penetration, providing digital leverage for future geopolitical confrontations. This is not the act of a single country, but part of a national strategic plan. Under the guise of green energy and technology, China's export products also serve intelligence gathering and remote intervention functions, posing serious national security risks to other countries. On May 14th, South Korean media, The Elect, revealed that Huawei, long sanctioned by the US government, secretly operates at least 11 semiconductor foundries and 10 research institutions focused on chip development. To avoid US sanctions, these factories and research centers use different names to disguise their connection to Huawei. They mainly produce memory chips and logic chips used in Internet of Things and mobile phones. Some are contract or foundry production lines. Sources say the Chinese government owns shares in these companies, and the semiconductor plants are actually operated by Huawei. Employees inside these factories have confirmed this. Examples include Qingdao Si-En Technology Company, which is under China's state-owned Asset Supervision and Administration Commission, DGGMT Technology Company, owned by Dongguan's SASAC, PST, WXW, and SWX Technologies, fully owned by Shenzhen Major Industry Investment Group, which is itself under Shenzhen's SASAC, and Jinhua Technology Trade Company Limited under Fujian's SASAC. One source admitted Huawei deliberately uses different names for these chip factories to hide their connection. Company names change along with ownership shifts to keep this disguise. Huawei has secretly built its own semiconductor ecosystem through these companies. If you also include the companies funded by Huawei's venture capital arm, Hubble Investment, Huawei's control over the chip ecosystem becomes even larger. According to the Korean media report, among the 11 semiconductor companies or foundries secretly operated by Huawei, at least 5 can manufacture chips using 7-nanometer or more advanced processing nodes. Among them, Pengxing Micro Integrated Circuit Manufacturing Company, PXW, is the largest foundry in terms of capacity. Qingdao Si-En was founded by Zhang Rujing, the founder of SMIC, and it owns 5 chip factories. Shenzhen Shengweishu Technology, SWX, was founded by a former Huawei executive and mainly produces memory cards. Shenzhen Pengxing New Technology, PST, and Shenzhen Guangmao Technology, DGGMT, mainly produce storage chips for mobile phones. Huawei also operates about 10 large research centers. Sources say some of these centers are very large and may have the capability to manufacture chips. Because of U.S. export controls on semiconductors, Huawei's spending on chip research and production has sharply increased in recent years. This has seriously hurt the company's profits. According to Bloomberg, based on Huawei's published annual financial data, Huawei reported a net loss of about 300 million yuan in the fourth quarter of 2024. This is the first quarterly net loss since public data has been available since 2018. A Japanese media analysis cited by the report says that U.S. restrictions have greatly increased Huawei semiconductor R&D and production costs, which is one reason for the company's losses. Notably, on May 13th, the U.S. government escalated its chip sanctions on Huawei again. The U.S. Commerce Department issued new guidance, clearly stating that using Huawei's Ascend AI chips anywhere in the world violates U.S. export control regulations. The Commerce Department's Bureau of Industry and Security also warned in a statement that using U.S. chips to help train Chinese AI models could have potential consequences. On the same day, the U.S. Commerce Department announced the removal of a Biden-era Tier 3 export control measure on advanced computing semiconductors. This policy, called the Framework for Artificial Intelligence Diffusion, was introduced shortly before Biden left office in January and was set to take effect on May 15th. The policy aimed to stop China from obtaining advanced U.S. chips and technology through third countries. BIS said this measure imposed heavy regulatory burdens on companies, would stifle U.S. innovation, downgrade dozens of countries to second-class status, and harm U.S. diplomatic relations with those countries. Experts say that canceling this policy is important for the U.S. because China and the U.S. are now competing on a new track in advanced chips and other high-tech fields. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang recently told President Trump that China is closing the gap in AI and AI chips. Although China hasn't surpassed the U.S. yet, it is catching up fast. If the U.S. imposes strict bans on high-tech products in many countries, it might slow down China's current civilian product upgrades in the short term. But in the long term, it could push those countries, even U.S. allies, to use Chinese alternative products. Even though those products lag behind, China can flood the market with lower prices. U.S. tech companies are fighting against a tech monster backed by the full force of the Chinese government. Whether it's called Huawei or something else, this is China's last big fight. It's desperate, all-out resistance. China can ignore the people's welfare, cut spending on healthcare and education, and even private property to put all its efforts into beating the US in AI. It sees AI as the key to global dominance. The Trump administration is trying to get all countries except China to use American high-tech products because those companies need profits to keep innovating and leading. At the same time, Trump imposed a 3,521% punitive tariff on Chinese solar products in Cambodia. This was to show determination to push all Huawei-related equipment out of the US. This is a declaration of war against China. Back to the beginning. What should U.S. households do if they have solar panels? Experts recommend having a professional check smart inverters, remove any hidden communication devices and malicious software, and use these solar panels only after ensuring safety.